Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily and our in-depth coverage of the unsealed affidavit in the murder of the Idaho Four. There is a lot of information that we learned from that document that really stopped everyone in their tracks, but there's also a lot of things that we don't know. Law enforcement consider Bryan Kohberger as the sole perpetrator in the murders, but we still don't know if the 28-year-old Pennsylvania man has anything to do with the college students living in Idaho. We do know that he was studying at Washington State University, but exact connections haven't been made. Earlier this week, we learned that the victim's parents are working with law enforcement to try to connect those dots. The affidavit also mentions just one piece of DNA at the crime scene connecting back to Kohberger, the knife sheath found on Madison Mogen's bed. With the victims found brutally stabbed in two separate locations, there are potentially more clues in the home. On Thursday, we heard from trial consultant Sonny Slaughter, who emphasized the importance of justice and also patience in this type of case.
Doing things fast is not as important as getting things right. And right now, it's important not for the public as much as it is for the family of Kaylee and Madison and Zaina and Ethan to know that justice is working in a process that will hopefully secure them, not justice in the sense that they will ever forget, but ensuring that whoever is guilty of this crime is no longer out and about to commit it again.
So, Bryan, we learned where the victims were found, but what the affidavit cut short of doing was describing the murders itself. So what is missing there?
Yeah, it's the autopsy report. It's the medical examiner's report. We, of course, know it's a homicide. It's not an accident or something or a natural death. But what I'm looking for, and especially when you read that first page and it says redacted just before it gets into the two victims who were found in the bathroom, what do these injuries look like? Who got more injuries than the others? Did some injuries look more brutal to some victims than to others? We already heard some of that from some of the parents describing the difference of the injuries. But I think if we look into the medical examiner's report, we're going to get a lot more from the picture. So far, the affidavit is telling us who and why they believe it's who, but I want to know the how this all happened. Of course, that sheath gives us more information, and probably that's why we were led to believe that this is that unique Marine or military-used weapon, but I want to know about the injuries. That's going to give us a lot more information.
And basically what you're saying, Bryan, is we don't have the why. We don't have a motive here. And based on the information, Terry, what is the motive here? Why would he have done this? Do you think the prosecution's going to explain the motive? That seems to me to be the central question.
Well, you know, I think there might have been two separate motives here, or potential motives here. And the prosecution, as you know, doesn't have to prove a motive, but it's always nice to be able to explain the story. I think the first motive could have been the fact that he is obsessed with criminology. He has a master's in criminology. He's working towards his PhD. He studied under an expert serial killer who knows how to define and to locate serial killers, not the fact that the professor was a serial killer, but he knows how to find these people. And so I think it's clear that Kohberger is obsessed with this. And, you know, if that's not the motive, and I think that's part of it, he thought he could get away with it, but clearly he didn't. He left, Bryan talked about some of the things that he left behind in terms of his DNA, the shoe print, the car, all of these things. But if that's not the motive, then it could very well be the fact that one of these women might have crossed his path. They probably didn't even know it, because we have seen that these other people were talking about the fact that Kohberger just was arrogant and that he got upset all the time if you turned him down. So I definitely think that that could be an alternate second motive there. But we'll see if the prosecution talks about it.
And we know that based on the evidence, he was possibly tracking them, so planning this. It gives just another indication in all this. Bryan, Terry, great job going through this. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time as we discuss justice in America.